I'm not a resident of Cape Town. When I listened to him, I thought, we're talking about building smart cities, but this is at least a smartly governed city, if nothing else. So thank you very much for that. Now I have the pleasure to call to the podium one of the top 10 televised people in South Africa, not by his own choice. Jan Oberholzer. When I see you and Andre the Writer on television, I think, well, that's a job you will have to pay me much, much more to do. But Jan, we know you're working hard, and I think the people here, although there's often criticism of Eskom, we understand that you guys are really trying, and we really look forward to listening to you. Bye, donkey.
Presentation on? Is it up? Okay. Then I can close this.
Let's just check is the presentation off.
Oh, then I can go. Yeah. How does it work? You know?
I think that thing.
Yeah, that can you see me? Aha. Thanks. Okay. Good morning. Goeiemôre. Eintlik moet ek begin met sê môre, morning. So, I suppose one of the things before I start the presentation is everybody would like to know, how does the system look? I arrived back in the country yesterday from Europe. And when I landed and I had a good look at the system, it's an app that I have on my cell phone that updates every hour on how the system looks. I saw that we're heading for a difficult week. So when I woke up this morning, I usually get up at about 3 to do my admin. I saw that specifically, we've got 3 dams, 3 pump storage dams, Drakensberg, Ingula, and Palmitia. Palmita and Ingula, sort of through the weekend and through the night, we managed to get it sort of full, the upper dam. But Drakensberg, the big one, is only about 2/3 full. We also, unfortunately, lost some units over the weekend. So the bad news is we're in for a rough ride this week. We're really going to have a difficult week. Over and above the fact that we have to deal with the challenges of the system. We're running out of money burning diesel. I haven't checked since I'm back, but I believe we've burned this year, for the first 6-7 months, already nearly 12 billion rand in diesel. And Eskom, we have some significant challenges, as you're aware, financially. So it makes it extremely, extremely challenging. So I thought, let me start with that, because usually when I am asked to say a few things, that's the first question I get afterwards. So I thought, let me deal with that up front. Then we know that we are really, really challenged. So again, thanks for inviting me. Thanks for really the opportunity and the privilege to share some information with yourselves. You're more than welcome to ask me any questions. I was listening to the mayor earlier about the budget for maintenance and for investment, asset investment. And I was very pleased to hear that. Because if you don't show respect even to a piece of machine, it is amazing what respect you're getting back. And that's where we find ourselves. If you don't look after what is entrusted to you, it tends to come back and give you absolutely the same respect. So I've decided to show you on the left-hand side just the decline in energy availability. So since about 2010, you can see the availability has gone down. Now there's a little blip. That was the Cocoa era and the Molefe era. So you can place whatever value you want in that. But you can clearly see that our energy availability over the last decade, 12, 13 years, thanks, has been declining. And there are various reasons for this. I'll very briefly talk about it. Now, in 1998, Eskom submitted a white paper saying we need additional capacity in the country because we're heading for load shedding. And at the time we said if we don't invest in additional capacity, load shedding will start in 2008. So the rest is history. That's when it started. Then, because we were late in building new capacity, eventually there was a realization that we're going to run out of power in 2004, 5, and then they said, let's start building Medupi, Kusile, and Ingula. Now, how do you build a 5,000 megawatt power plant, the fourth biggest in the world, without properly and timely designing it? So we started building. So while we were building, we were designing it. And the rest is history. And I'll talk about Kusile just now and Medupi. So we had lots of latent defects which we had to deal with. And we're still dealing with that. So you shy on short of capacity. You're not building. So what do you do with the existing plant? So there's no money to maintain it because the money needs to go to new plant. So what do you do with these old cars? Oh yeah, and then the cars are relatively old. You start putting your foot on the accelerator flat out all the time. So we created virtual capacity that we actually did not have. And the rest, again, is history. As I'm standing here today, the units that is running, and let me just stand back, I'll come back to this. We've got 14 coal-fired power plant. The one we retired 2 weeks ago, Kumati, so it's not 15 anymore, it's 14. But of the 14, if you take Medupi and Kusile and you just put it on the side, the 12 that is left, the average age of them is in excess of 43 years old, which you plan a power station typically for 50 years. If it makes sense economically and other reasons, you may extend it. So we have an old system, neglected, not maintained, run in the red all the time. So as we speak, for those units that's running, is running at a utilization of 92%. If you compare it to the international benchmark, it's about 70%, similar age. Now one would ask the question, but geez, Eskom, are you so irresponsible? I don't think so. It is a question of, this is a demand of the country, and the mayor spoke about if you don't have the necessary capacity, you need to implement load shedding. So this is what you have, the demand of the country, and this is what you have available. And this available fleet to deal with this demand is unreliable and unpredictable. So I'm not saying at all that old cars cannot run, that our older generating units cannot still run reliably and predictably. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is you need time to get them reliable and predictable. And how do you do that? You take a unit off, and if it means you need to maintain it for 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, whatever the case may be, that's what you need to do. Now the question is, then Eskom, why didn't you do that? Very simple, because the demand is saying we need that unit back as soon as possible. So take the Band-Aid, put the Band-Aid on, put some plaster, and get it back because it's needed to run. So this is where we find ourselves as Eskom, and this is why you get that picture that is showing a decline in availability of capacity. Then also colleagues, and I'm the first one, and I always make a point of this, to say I have nothing against transformation. As a matter of fact, I am in full support of transformation. If you go and look at my appointments that I've made the last 4.5 years, and I'm back, my second live in Eskom, I haven't made one white appointment. And I made many appointments. So I am for transformation. But colleagues, if you transform without understanding what the outcome of transformation should be, you have difficulty. So unfortunately in Eskom, to transform, which is nothing wrong with it. I just believe perhaps one could have looked at it differently. To transform, we let very experienced skills leave the organization. Maybe voluntary separation packages or whatever the case may be. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you let somebody with all that experience go and you're prepared to pay the individual, why are you not prepared to pay a little bit more and say, we will give this to you, but you will identify 5 new people, young people, lots of potential, lots of talent, train, develop, coach, mentor, whatever the case may be. And we will evaluate then. And then if we're comfortable, you can go. So we also, over and above the fact that we didn't pay the necessary respect to our equipment, we also have challenges currently with inexperienced colleagues. And again, I'm saying, lots of potential, lots of talent, but unfortunately, you know as well as I do, how do you get experience? You've got to work. Simple. You've got to climb the ladder through your career. So it's a challenge that we have. Are we dealing with that? Yes, we are, but I'm not going to spend time. Then in the middle slide, or little diagram, when we built these power stations, the environmental compliance, it wasn't what it is today. So throughout time, these regulations have been stepped up. And if you actually have to go strictly according to legislation, we have to now shut down in the next year another 15 gigawatt of capacity. So we are in engagement with the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment to understand how we can deal with this. But it is a significant challenge. So I've tried today just to give you, with this first slide, just to give you an idea on where we are and also why are we where we are. Now I'm the first one to say, can we do a lot more within Eskom? Absolutely. There is no doubt about it. Are we proud as Eskomites with the coal-fire fleet performance? No, we're not. But I would like to say that up front as well. We have some stunning people working for Eskom, absolutely incredible colleagues. And they deserve a little bit more than what they're getting currently. So I'd like to just thank them. They're not here, but I would like to thank them for the hard work and the commitment that they're showing, being dealt with a deck of cards that we currently have. So thank you for that. Now, Eskom, basically, we have 3 major challenges. The one is operational, which I've spoken about. And although I'm referring and zooming into generation, because this is what blackouts or load shedding is bringing to the front, generation. However, colleagues, to get the electron from where it's generated to where this is shining here means there's a piece of wire that needs to bring it here. So transmission as well as distribution. So if you look at the value chain, it is generation, transmission, and distribution getting the electrons to shine here today. So we must never forget that Eskom is not, or energy, electricity is not only about generating electrons. It is also about transporting those electrons to where it's needed. Now, do we have some challenges in that environment? Yes, we do. But it's more forgiving in this environment than in the generation fleet. Just to give you an idea, again, because of what has happened in the past, availability of funds, and we will not talk about corruption today. So it is so sad, that corruption is so embedded in Eskom that it's actually shocking. But if you then take on the wire side of the business, some of our assets, specifically in the transmission environment, is more than 45 years old. Now, maintained, but the time has come, and I can see a little bit of cracks in the wire side of the business that we need to deal with that. Do we? Have we got plans? Yes, we do. And colleagues, what we need to understand is load shedding is a pain in the backside. I'm the first one. Because when I take my Eskom hat off, I'm just one like you. I also have my wife bitching like hell. My sons, so I'm just a normal individual. But when I put my Eskom hat on, that's different. So we really need to make sure that that we deal with the whole value chain successfully. Then financial, I'm not going to spend a lot of time today, but we have some significant challenges. 400 billion debt. We make a healthy operating profit, EBITDA profit, but as soon as you need to deal with your financial obligations, you turn it into a huge loss. So, and then some of the municipalities somehow decide, an entitlement you said earlier there, they're entitled not to pay us. The outstanding debt as the end of September, I haven't seen the figure for end of October, is 52 billion rand. That is owed to Eskom, 52 billion rand. So on the one side, we say we cannot burn diesel because we don't have money. On the other side, people owe you 52 billion rand. And then there's another 4.5 billion that SARS owes us. So it is really a challenging situation in the financial environment. And then earlier the mayor spoke about wheeling. Now, I'll come to some, let me rather come to that. So we have some challenges in terms of grid access. And I'll explain a little bit more a little later what is grid access and why do we have some challenges. So these are the three buckets that I've decided to say what Eskom's three main challenges are. All I want to demonstrate with this slide, and you're more than welcome to have the deck of slides, is that although we have 47,000 megawatts installed, what is available is about 28. And I'm giving reasons on the slide why. While I was sitting there getting ready to just have a few words, I had a look at the system as it is now. Currently, we have 20,000 megawatts that is not available. 20 of the 47. 5 out because of maintenance, and 15 because of breakdowns and partial load losses. Partial load losses, if you've got a car, and when you put your foot on the accelerator, you can get 120 kilometers out of it. So if you put your foot down, you can only get 90 out of it. So because of other reasons, partial. So the breakdowns and partials is 15,000 and 5,000 we're doing maintenance. We've put our foot down under a lot of pressure, but we maintain that we will do the necessary maintenance on our, however we can, on our generation plant. So to have 5,000 megawatts out is a lot, given the current situation. But we have said this is what we're going to do. Then also, just for your benefit, as we speak, we have about 5,000 megawatts, 5,200 megawatts at risk. So this is over and above the 20,000 that is off now. We've got another 5,000 that is at risk. Maybe boiler tube leaks, it may be fan vibrations, or whatever the case may be, of which high risk is 1,500 megawatts, which can trip as I'm standing here. So this is what we are facing. So this slide is just showing, although we say we've got 47, there are valid reasons, and it's not excuses, for where we find ourselves. Now, this is an important slide for all of us to understand, and it's one of the main reasons why I went to Europe, to Denmark. This is saying 40 gigawatt of the 47 is base load coal capacity. And if you look what is going to happen over the next decade, 2 decades, it is going to reduce to less than 10. Now, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to know it's got to get, you've got to get it somewhere else. And everybody is talking renewables. I don't believe renewables is the only solution. It has to be a hybrid of some sort. But I'll come back to that now. So with this slide, I just wanted to show we are going to retire our coal plant. Remember what I said earlier, 43 years on an average age. So we're going to retire these power stations. So we have to make up that, what we retire. And this is only on what we have now. But I'll talk about the growth just now. So just to cater for what I've showed you now, in the next 15 years, we have to install at least 50 gigawatts. We're going to take 22 off, but we need to replace it by 50 because it's renewable and it will be hybrid. So it's not all the time baseload. Now, I, on purpose, and although I see my colleague here, not highlighted nuclear. As Eskom, we believe that nuclear has a fundamental role in the future. It is sustainable power. If you look at Koeberg's performance, although we had some hiccups lately, Koeberg is run extremely safe. We have a National Safety Regulation Board, an external specialist that's coming here twice per annum. They're actually coming in the week, next week. They're coming again for an audit to look, and the main focus say, are you operating Koeberg safely? So I can put your minds at ease. We are operating it very safely. We do have some challenges now that we're getting ready to extend the life with 20 years. So the performance is not that positive currently. However, we believe, and because we need to implement quite a lot of projects to get ready for the next 20 years. And one of the significant projects on each of these two units at Koeberg is to replace the steam generators. On Friday, I was in Framatome, with Framatome in Paris. We had some very candid discussions. However, the commitment is there now from this main contractor of ours to make a success of the replacement for Unit 1 that's coming down now on the 8th of December, and then in September, August, September next year when we take Unit 2 off. So, but just to say, over the next 15 years, decade and a half, we need to install at least 50 gigawatts. Now, is it possible? I believe it is possible, provided we are working together as SA Inc. People are often confusing Eskom's role in the establishment of new capacity. The mayor has spoken about that as well. Eskom does not make policy. Eskom implements policy made by the Department of Minerals and Energy. So we cannot now go and say, we're going to build this, and we're going to build that, and we're going to build the other. That role and responsibility is that of the DMRE. Now, with the crisis we had, stage 6 load shedding, the President, and we fully support what he has said, made a couple of comments and statements and say this is how things are going to change. And one of them being procurement. So we trust now that there will be a fundamental change in how we're going to procure going forward. I'd like to use just a simple analogy. If you've got a car, and I've got to be careful, it doesn't matter. If you've got a Mercedes-Benz car, argument's sake. So when you want to maintain it, you obviously would like to take it to a Mercedes registered, dealer, workshop. They will have qualified Mercedes-Benz mechanics. They will implement Mercedes-Benz genuine parts, and they will do whatever is necessary to keep that car on the road. And they will also tell you, this is how frequently you need to bring it back. You agree? That makes just absolute sense. Now, what do we have with the procurement that we have? You've got the Mercedes-Benz. You're not allowed to take it to Mercedes-Benz garage for reasons that you know. And I'm sure some of it may be something that is just doesn't make sense. And when your car's there, you don't have a Mercedes mechanic. You have somebody else, because that is what the procurement rules are describing, the cheapest. And then when you implement the parts, or put in new parts, and this is why I was laughing, I made a statement, and I'm going to do it again, and then I'll say what it means. I said, you're not going to put in Tata parts. So I got a call and a letter from the CEO of Tata in India saying, what's wrong with our part? That's not the point I'm making. The point I'm making is you're actually going to install what is fit for purpose, the original equipment manufacturer. Now, this has contributed significantly to the unpredictability and unreliability of what we have. So if you have decided to take your car to a backyard mechanic, put in any part that you can, and you know, if there's a cut in the hose, you just put some PVC tape on, you're not replacing the hose, then you know when you're going to drive your vehicle, you're going to stop. One day you're going to stop. You don't know why you're stopping. You don't know how long it's going to take to fix it. You don't know how long you're going to drive before it shuts down again. So these are the challenges that we do have. Now everybody say, but the president said you can change. So why do you still have load shedding? Now, you know as well as I do, you don't say things can change and then overnight, things are getting ready and getting right. So this is going to take time, but we welcome all the things that the state president has said what needs to change in order to get Eskom on its feet. Just very briefly, we've got 8 work streams that has been created under this national joint committee, a crisis committee. We meet every Sunday at between 2 and 4, 12 and 2, giving feedback on progress. So I am extremely optimistic that we will be moving forward. So this one I'm going to skip. Let's come to this one. I want to come to this one. So as Eskom, what we said, this 50 gigawatt that needs to be installed over the next decade and a half, what does it actually mean? So the calculations we made is that we will have to spend about R1 trillion. I don't even know how many zeros you have in a trillion. But that we will have to spend R1 trillion in getting this capacity on the grid. But for me as Jan, personally, more critical is how are you going to transmit or transport those electrons that you generate to where it's needed. Now, for those of you that's got a farm, I'm sure this will resonate with you. If you have a farm and you and your wife or your husband are sitting there every night having a glass of wine or a cup of coffee, whatever the case may be, looking at the sunset, listening to the birds, looking at the mountains, the next day when an Eskom bakkie stops there and say, sir, will you please just sign? We're going to build a line here, right here. Are you going to sign? That is a big issue. Now, we have estimated that we need to roll out 8,500 kilometers of transmission line. You've heard me correctly, 8,500 kilometers. That's transmission lines. Over and above that, and that will cost us 150 billion. Then you've got to ask the question, but if you have to do it, do you have the contractors to do it? Do you have the material to do it? So these are significant challenges. Remember what I said earlier? We've got to do this as SA Inc. Otherwise, if we're not, Jan, my view is we're going to run out of capacity in this country. So over and above the transmission infrastructure, there's another 7,000 kilometers of distribution line that needs to be rolled out. Another 50 billion that we're talking about. So this is a challenge that is facing this electricity industry. And I believe it is so challenging and so exciting. Just imagine You know, if we play this right, just, you know, this 40% unemployment that we have in the country, just imagine what we can do with this. However, what needs to be on top of the agenda all the time will be, how are we going to make sure that a big percentage of that money is not disappearing into people's pockets? Corruption, because this is what we're dealing with. But for me, this is extremely exciting. What is waiting in the next decade and a half in this country, you know, to grow the electricity industry. I think it's so exciting. Can we do it? Yes, I believe so. Do we have the people? Yes, we have. We have challenges? Yes, we have. But I believe if we deal with those effectively, we can make a significant contribution. First of all, to the economy, and secondly, to the lives of 61 million people in the country. So, obviously, we as Eskom said, now, okay, over the next 3 years, break it down in 12 months, 24, 36 months. How are we going to deal with this shortage that we have? We've got between 4,000 and 6,000 megawatts short as we speak. So how can we make sure that we deal and get those megawatts on the grid as soon as possible to get rid of load shedding? Now, Eskom has taken responsibility, and I'm accountable as a Group Chief Operating Officer, to make sure that we claw back at least 2 gigawatts, 2,000 megawatts over the next 24 months, 12 to 24 months. Then we need to pursue and actively pursue additional capacity to sign it on. Now, colleagues, nearly 3 years ago, when we first had load shedding stage 6, I don't know if you can remember, I'll never forget it, the 9th of December 2019, I just started my second career, my second life in Eskom. The president was in Egypt. He had to cut short his visit. So he came back. So we had to face him. I had to face him. It was him, the Deputy President, David Mabuza, Minister of DMRE, Kweri Mantashe, and Public Enterprises, Minister Gordhan. So we explained, we discussed a lot of things, and I had to explain what's happening. I can vividly remember that the Deputy President said, you know, but if these cars are so old, so unreliable, we need to get new cars. The President said, you know, if we are having this challenge, you know, maybe we need to have more mechanics that is qualified. But at the end, after I've explained whatever I had to explain, the President asked me, he said, Jan, so tell me, what do we do now? And I can remember my words, Mr. President, we need 4 to 6 gigawatts the day before yesterday, 3 years ago. So what have we done in 3 years? 125 megawatts. I believe if we've taken it seriously, and Eskom is not innocent, make no mistake. Jan is not innocent, make no mistake. But if we've taken this seriously 3 years ago, I believe we would have been much better position today. Much, much better. So there is no doubt in my mind. If we don't put additional capacity on the grid as soon as possible, working together, we're going to face serious, serious problems. And what I'm talking about additional capacity, it is sun, it is wind, it is gas. I've heard the issue of gas. Eskom is seeing gas as a transition. It is nuclear. New coal, there's no money for new coal. You know, if you look what is happening in the world. And this is why I went to Denmark to say, how have you done and rolled out your renewables? And we had an excellent discussion, and they said over the last 10 years they've installed 15, not 50, which we need to do, 15. And they said in the first couple of years, it takes time. So there's a learning curve that we need to go through. So I think with this, the message that I'm giving, we don't have the luxury of time. Then there was also, we spoke about the geysers. Eskom, we've realized that demand-side management is a critical component, making sure capacity is available. And we believe over the next 3 years, we can harvest 1,500 megawatts sustainably every year. That is 1.5 stages of load shedding. This is where we will request the users of electricity, whatever ways and means to reduce electricity. You know, I don't know, I'm sure it's only my household, but I forever and day have to say, why is the lights burning? But it's only my house. So I believe there's a lot of things that we can do to really assist in dealing with the capacity constraints that we do have. Then I've spoken about the 52 billion owed by Munich. I've heard the mayor talking about good paying municipalities. Why are we treating good paying municipalities as Eskom the same as the ones not bothering to pay us? What I'm trying to demonstrate here, what I am demonstrating, what we're looking, and we will finalize it soon, and I know this is a heck of a sensitive, is when we are forced into a position of load shedding, that why do we need to give electricity to the people not paying us? And that we first not make capacity available to them. And by doing this, we can actually harvest 1 stage of load shedding currently. So we are looking at this, and I know it's very sensitive. And I'm under a lot of pressure by my union colleagues about this. All I want to demonstrate here is the challenge rolling out 8,500 kilometers of transmission line. What we've done in the past and what we need to do going forward. It is an absolute step change going forward. This is a dedicated focus. I'm heading the steering committee by Eskom on how are you going to make sure where are all these resources that needs to be available in order for you to achieve 8,500 kilometers over the next 12 to 15 years. And if it was only line, it was a little bit more easier, but it's going to be daunting. The other issue is, together with this, we need to build 12 massive substations. Again, this is exciting. You know, it's job creation. You know, manufacturing that we can create, plants that we can create in the country. But we have to work together in order to achieve this. What I've just giving here is what are those projects that is on the books with Eskom specifically, and that we personally are going to roll out over the next 3 years. That is adding up to between 3.5 and 6 gigawatts. So as Eskom, remember we are retiring some of our power plant. So it doesn't help if you take a power station that's been there for 50 years. Because around that power station you have a community, you have schools, you have clinics, you have shops. That's where the people are living. So if you shut down the power station and you don't do anything, you create other opportunities, it is a significant negative impact on that community. So we are going to repurpose and repower these power stations. It may be solar, it may be wind, it may be gas, it may be SMR. So that we can actually transition on a just basis, that we can assist those communities and not create additional challenges for the country. So these are some of the projects that we do have. It also have some dates and the megawatts on what we believe is possible. The next 2 slides is just to show exactly where these projects will be rolled out. I think that's all what I wanted to share. I usually end with this slide. And tomorrow, if you want to see me on TV again, we've got the system briefing tomorrow. Where's Antoinette? So you can ask your question on TV again tomorrow. She's always asking me, why are you still there? I respect that, Antoinette, not a problem. All this slide is saying, please, whenever you don't need to utilize an electron, do not use an electron. I think we've been very spoiled, and I suppose justifiably so in the past, that there was always an abundance of electricity. But please, we're in a situation now that we are really challenged. And so we are relying on myself and all in South Africa to make sure that we really preserve this resource that is very challenging currently. Can we as Eskom make a change? There's no doubt in the situation that we have. There's no doubt. Do we have plans in place? Yes, we have. Do we have challenges? Quite a lot. Really. You know, my dad used to work for Eskom for 25 years. So I sort of grew up in an Eskom house. It wasn't an Eskom house, but an Eskom house. I was an Eskom bursar. I worked for 26 years of my first life for Eskom. I then left for 10. I always ask the question, why did I have to leave? But that's a story for another day. But when I came back, I walked into an organization that was foreign to me. So a lot has changed. There are significant challenges. What we also need to understand, 20 years ago, when there was sufficient and adequate capacity for what was needed, we had a system that was well maintained, well looked after. 20 years ago, we were voted as Eskom the best utility in the world by our peers, not by somebody, by our peers in the world. It was a top-class utility. But you know what happened the last decade and a half. So we have significant challenges that we're dealing with. And I again want to come back to the colleagues that we have in the organization and just again thank them for really what they are doing. So we will do our utmost. That's all I can give you, my word, and because that's all I have. It is not that we're not aware of the challenges. It is not that we do not know what to do. It is just making it extremely difficult to what you want to do and what you're actually able to do. So again, that is all I wanted to say. So thank you for inviting me. And I know I've perhaps spoken too long, so I do apologize for that. Thanks.
Colleagues, I must say I'm a pain in the butt for my family about lights burning. So
Thanks.
Helping. Yeah. The other thing we have time for a few questions. The other thing I want to say, according to what Jan has said, I've often asked the question when I do a presentation on some other thing. How long does it take to acquire 10 years experience? And people say, what the hell a question is that? I say, it's not rhetoric, because some people in this country think you can get 10 years experience in 6 months or in a year. That's one of the problems. Questions? There's one there from a mayor, and there's one here from Dr. Buys, Mr. Buys. Flip, the mayor promoted Flip. Flip is a very smart guy. He actually should have a doctorate, but he doesn't yet. Please, Mr. Mayor, your name again.
Thank you, it's me again. Jan, I want to touch on the issue of debt, money. We as municipalities, we have a credit control policy. All the municipalities has got that. And if you notice at the municipalities that are high up there in terms of generating income out of electricity or paying Eskom for that matter, is that in the areas where the municipalities render the reticulation, we switch off and people come and pay. And all the other areas that are not paying are Eskom run areas. And Eskom refuse us to implement the same policy. Now I'm saying if Eskom can have an agreement with municipalities in your Eskom areas that we can implement the same policy, we will generate more money and pay Eskom. So we all have our little Sowetos, and that are caused by Eskom. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to have a discussion with you, please, because I'm serious, because I don't see any challenges in this, real challenges. If you can assist in terms of revenue management, surely, I'll be stupid if I don't say to you, can we just sit around the table and understand it? So thank you for that. Yeah, thank you.
Flip.
Dr. Weiss.
Mr. Oberholzer, I've also been working for Eskom many years ago. It was a wonderful time. My question is related to organizational culture. Peter Drucker said that culture eats strategy for breakfast. Now, I see you addressing the operational challenges, financial, etc., but the organizational culture is very important to support your strategy. And I want to know, because I think organizational culture is a very big issue in Eskom.
Yeah. Pete, thanks. When the lady from the Eastern Cape was talking earlier about the word she couldn't get and she got it, entitlement, it is something that we are challenged with in Eskom. I can recall when I came back into Eskom after an absence of 10 years, Eskom at the time made a 20 billion loss per annum. And I went around with my staff engagements and I said, you can kiss performance bonus, goodbye. There's nothing. Because remember, I came from the real world. And in that 10 years, I opened my own business. And isn't it amazing how grateful you are if there is any money coming in? Escomites are getting paid on the 26th of the month. If you work or you don't work, you get paid. So I said, there is no more performance bonus. So you can imagine my interaction with the unions. And then I also said, please go on your knees. If any business that's making a 20 billion loss, go on your knees that you're getting a salary at the 26th of the month. I got 2 grievances against me. So the point that you make, we have a challenge in terms of morale. We have a challenge in terms of value system in the organization. Have we realized that? Do we realize it? Yes. Are we working on that? Yes, we are. We have a new board, and I believe I'm quite excited. I had 2 interactions with them already. I'm very excited about the interactions, and I believe the board understands. We had an onboarding session for a whole day, and afterwards, the chairman said, we thought, a day of onboarding, getting them up to speed, will be sufficient. So he said, this is going to take us 6 months to get on board. But I'm very positive about the board that will assist us. And one of the things that we have spoken about is morale.
Thank you.
So it is a challenge for us.
2 more questions, if there are. Otherwise, there's one there. And
Can only be Antoinette.
Hang on a little bit, Antoinette. Your name? Yes. Just switch it on for us, guys.
There we are.
Okay.
Thank you. My name is Percy van Staden, all the way from Pretoria. Yeah, and I had a friend that wanted to introduce me to Jan. He told me Jan is a real person and it's a real guy amongst our all dealing with the same issues that we are dealing, and I appreciated that part of your speech telling us that you are also dealing with the same issues that we are dealing. But my question is the electric car growth. What is the expectation of that in terms of the Eskom scenario, and has that been brought into the figures at the moment, the expected generation that we need, and where do we stand with that? That's my question. Thanks.
Thanks, Percy. Important question. I believe it's one of the areas that we haven't given as Eskom enough attention to. However, there are reasons for that. If you take, the import duties and all those sort of things, you talk 42%. So it sort of makes it financially challenging. However, Eskom, our research, testing and development section, are actively working on promoting that. Our distribution business have now committed to buy 12 EV vehicles to start getting it into the system. So we are very pro-electric vehicles. As a matter of fact, as I said, I was now in Europe. I was there in a place called Malmö in Sweden at the south. And there was a nice bus coming, and it was green, but I didn't register. And I was waiting for the bus. When it passed, I was waiting for the voo-voo. and I heard nothing. And then I realized, this bus is green, and this is why the bus is green. So have we factored it into the projections in terms of demand? Yes, we have, but moderate demand.
Thank you. Antoinette, last question. You can ask any question but that one.
Thank you. I just want to know, with regards to load shedding and the, who gets shed first and who gets skipped and so forth, surely it's not up to Eskom to decide. There's a national standard. Has any process begun to review that standard in the light of the experience with intensive load shedding that we've had now?
Antoinette, thanks. Again, it's an interesting question. We have not formally revised NSRS 049, whatever you call it. Are we following up when we implement, say, a stage 2 or stage 3, and we then look from a system operation point of view, but the load is not gone? Yes, we are. So in these isolated cases, we do follow it up. Wherever we then discover some of those distributors not playing ball, we deal with them individually. Do we have some of them? Unfortunately, yes, we do have some of them. We also do have, unfortunately, some of these distributors that believe they can implement this standard the way they see fit. But thanks for the question. I will definitely take it back. Maybe, I believe you've got a good point, Antoinette. Now that, because load shedding is here to stay for the next 2 years. Let's be clear about that. And it's not something that we want to hear. I want to talk about that, if you don't mind. Sure. Give me a few minutes. We had an explosion at Kusile, at Medupi, Unit 4. Remember the generator explosion? Now the question is also, but what have you done about it? We unfortunately had to suspend 2 colleagues. Because how can you introduce oxygen while you have hydrogen? Doesn't matter. So and that is 720 megawatts that is gone for 2 years. Nearly a stage of load shedding. Okay? Kuburg is going off now on the 8th of December for maintenance, normal maintenance, extensive maintenance to get ready for the long-term operation. Also refueling, but then also the significant project to replace 3 steam generators. Never done in South Africa. I trust now with the relationship that has improved with the contractor that it will be possible. That is 920 megawatts. Anything between 180 days and 200 days. So it's now 720 plus 920. Then you're aware of the flue duct failure we had at Kusile, unit number 1. That is going to take 6 months at least to fix. I have a meeting tomorrow afternoon, late afternoon, with the contractor that built it. The contractor doesn't want to help us. Now, why will a contractor not help you to fix it? Is it because you're going to find out something? I don't know. But Kusile Unit 1 is 800 megawatts. And because it's in the same chimney, Kusile 1 and 2, we've decided to keep it off for fear of the same failure and safety. So it's another 800 plus 800. And then we had a fire in Kusile Unit 5, although it's a construction unit. To bring it back, we wanted to first synchronize it before the end of the year to the grid. We had a fire. That is going to set 800 megawatts. That is going to set us back 12 months. Now, you're going to add it. 800, 800, 800, 800, 720, 920. Right. Significant challenge that we're facing. Over and above the unreliability and unpredictability of what we have. This is why I cannot emphasize enough. We need additional capacity. It's now the day before last year. And we need to work together, put our differences aside, and work together as SA Inc. to bring it back. And then when we bring back, remember Kuburg after the 280, 200 days, In August, Unit 2 needs to be taken off. Same work, same period of time. So we have really significant challenges in terms of available capacity. Thanks. I just wanted to make this point. Thanks.
Colleagues, we are going to break for tea until 15:15. But can I say on our behalf to Jan, Mr. Oberholzer, in English, they only have one word, good luck, but luck has nothing to do with it, so I will want to say sterkte. Thank you. 15:15.